Hello and welcome. I'm RJ Kerr, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure. This is our ongoing live stream where we're writing a D&D adventure in real time. And today we are getting very, very close to the end of our. Well, we haven't really given this adventure a title yet, have we? We've called it. We've got the Berg and we've got Skysong Gulch. Um, and we've got the Bloodgood Sisters. We'll think about it today. We'll come up with a title. We're getting very close to the end of that adventure. But before we dive into that, there's something that I wanted to kind of share with all of you. It's a project that I've been working on. You may or may not have heard me talking about it if you've been watching some of my other videos, but I am DMing on startplayinggames.com. I'm sorry, startplaying.games. Excuse me. I've mentioned this at the end of sort of other videos very quickly, but I just wanted to kind of walk you through this. This is a really cool platform that I didn't even know about until the beginning of this year, where DMs and can post games and recruit players, and you can pretty much find games going on at any time of the day or any day of the week. So if you want to check out my content, I'm startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr, spelled just like the name. And I've got I've been adding to my campaign listing here, and so right now we've got a mix of homebrew, published adventures. I've got stuff that runs throughout the week, so Monday, Thursday. I've got the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday as well. Everything from one shots like Hag Heist, which I did a little overview on this channel before, to ongoing adventures like Lost Mine of Phandelver. In fact, if you want to jump into a game that is already going, very early on in the process, we're just moving into the second set. Well, technically moving into the first session as our session 0 kind of bled into the adventure. Um, we're be playing Finders Keepers, and that's my twist on the classic Lost Mine of Phandelver adventure, where I run it as kind of like a spy thriller. Um, it's a good time. Come check it out. And that one is already off to the races and going. Now, if you're looking for one that hasn't started yet, you want to be in from the beginning, I've got campaigns that run again all week and all kinds of schedules, whether they're bi weekly or weekly or even just one shots. Not sure if you want to play with me in particular. Well, one of the cool things about this platform is that you can check out the reviews for the GMs. Um, we all get reviewed, and all of that gets posted on here, including our proficiencies. So, for example, I'm a pretty brand new to this platform. I've really been only on here for just over a month at this point. I've already got 11 5-star reviews, and it's ranked me pretty high for things like teaching and storytelling, creativity. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, I hope that you will come find me here at startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr and join one of my adventures. I would love to actually get to play with some of you. That would be really neat for me. All right. End of shameless self promotion. And let's get into the reason why we're all actually here. Let's talk about the last bits that we need to do on our adventure. So, going ahead and jumping over to that. Um, we spent the last couple sessions here working on building out and fleshing out a lot of the detail of Sky Song Gulch, specifically the different shops and locations, as well as a little bit of additional detail about some of the key NPCs that the players might encounter. The We put a lot of detail in this with the hope that we'll keep using Sky Song Gulch for other adventures. Um, and as I previously mentioned, you may or may not want to put that kind of detail into it because this adventure does include the possibility that uh, the players kind of walk away from it at the very end of this adventure, that they leave it to the Bloodgood Sisters. But we have the time and we have that flexibility, and it's a good practice. It's good practice, I should say, to kind of spend some time figuring some of these odds and ends out. But as I was reviewing what we've done already and scrolling through the breadth of this adventure that really occurs to me needs a name now. Um, I realized that we've pretty much got everything that we would need. These are sort of thematic rooms where they don't have we don't necessarily have any encounters in there. They're just kind of there for flavor and because they make sense. But those are places that we can kind of come up with on the fly. So we've got a little bit of treasure that's littered in through here. We probably want to add a little bit more, but again, that's stuff that we could kind of do as we go and kind of feel out as we need it. Treasure is such a nuanced thing anyway. It really depends on your specific adventure and what your players value. Um, but we've got the final encounter very much laid out here, including the actual potential combat with Briar Bloodgood, even the resolution. We've got everything but what happens to Skysong Gulch if the characters just abandon it to its fate. So the one big glaring thing that we don't yet have is we don't really have a beginning yet. We have Nisa's offer, Nisa Stoneheart, our mayor. We have what she actually pitches to the characters, but we don't have uh, we don't have the beginning to our story. We don't have the exposition, if you will. So that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time working on today. So beginnings are ultra important. So there's a saying in fiction, and I think it applies well to TTRPGs as well, and that is that your your first chapter sells the rest of the book. The last chapter sells the next book, right? And it's works very much the same kind of way here in that what the what you do to set the stage at the beginning of your adventure is going to sell the rest of the adventure to your characters, to your players. And then what happens at the climax, what I should say, what happens at the resolution is going to sell the next adventure. Which is not to say that you need to railroad your characters and that they need to have a specific plot they need to follow. But let's be honest, you have ideas about what should come next, and there's nothing wrong with creating beginnings and endings that are compelling, that get your players wanting to engage in that adventure, wanting to engage in the adventure that you want to write and the story that you want to write. Everybody wins in that case. So it's worth some time digging in and building a really good beginning. Now, what creates a really good beginning? Um, that's a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked that, RJ. Um, a bunch of uh, disparate, unconnected pieces of information on your characters. You want to open up with a scene, open up with an encounter. Even better if it's one that the players or the characters can interact with. So we want the characters to come into town and immediately find themselves in a moment that is kind of a microcosm of the whole situation as realistically as we can make it. We don't need to get, arbitrary about this. But for example, we have a village or a town, I should say, that is on the brink of a, a disaster. Really, they need this cold iron. They need it, or the Bloodgood sisters are going to show up and do terrible things, right? Because they will not have met their part of the pact. And yet, nobody that they have encountered is able to acquire it. So, a couple things need to happen. And it's better, I think, if they happen sort of on stage where the characters can see them. And that's one, we need to see indications that, you know, that all other options have failed. And we need to see indications of how the town collectively kind of feels about that. So I could imagine a I suppose since I'm just kind of talking at the moment, you can look at me instead of the screen. We'll move back to that when we type. But I could imagine the players coming into town and finding that there's almost a traffic jam of wagons and boats and mounts where people are all kind of riding up, families are collecting their belongings and they're loading up and they're looking like they're getting out of town in a hurry. You've got some people that are staying behind, plenty of people that are staying behind, plenty of folks who don't want to give up their home, who are holding out hope that this calamity is going to pass them over. You see that with every disaster. And I do think of a coven of hags coming down on your small town as akin to a natural disaster, right? You can almost make those parallels in how people would react. So, one, we need to see people flooding out of town, other people, trying to stand strong, maybe judging the people who aren't staying, scoffing that they're cowards, other folks who are just, huddling children into their wagons, trying to get their family to safety. And so we come into town in kind of all that chaos. And then this, maybe we have a moment where maybe a boat comes down the river, or another vehicle, depending on where the characters are. Probably a boat because they can see it from most places in town, especially the bridge. But maybe a boat comes down the river, and it's got a number of corpses littered in it. You can see that they've been laid out respectively. They've been covered with tarps, but that telltale outline, makes it very clear what it is as it sort of somberly moves into town. And then we could have this, this interaction if the characters go and check it out, because let's be honest, why wouldn't they? This is the kind of thing that would draw their attention, especially if they have nothing else that's pressing. The characters go and they check it out, and they can listen in on the conversation between, who knows, and Nisa, our mayor, where, something to the effect of, this NPC who's pulling the boat in, makes a comment about, found him halfway to the burg, or maybe found him, a couple miles outside of town, and Nisa goes look under the look under the tarp, and the NPC makes a comment about might not want to do that. They're pretty torn up, something along those lines, where we don't need to do the whole dialogue and the whole exchange, but having just that little bit of that little hint of something is wrong here, something that might require the help of adventurers, and seeing how it's affecting the town. One, makes this place feel very alive, and two, it makes it a very immersive experience for our players and makes them more likely to engage. So, with that being said, let's take a look. All right. So, let's give this a go. Okay. So, this is wrong. We don't want it because it implies people are just kind of nervous, and we don't want that. We want this to feel like a pending natural disaster. Okay. Let's see here. The walkways and river of are bursting with townspeople huddling there. Let's say loading riverboats. Clearly packing up to evacuate town. And this is a nuanced point, but something I would mention to you is, using evocative language when you write these descriptions, even for yourself, is going to kind of help you kind of capture the mood of the moment. They're not leaving town, they're evacuating town. Little things like that. I know it sounds silly, but it can make a big difference in how you convey this scene and the sense that your players get. All right. see, Ham stalwart. Um, locals stand in shop doors and peer through windows, clucking at the their neighbors fleeing town like rats from a sinking ship. And again, back to that evocative point here, switched up when you change up the point of view from what you're writing, right? Change up the language. Don't be afraid to make value judgments when you're writing these sorts of details, right? Um, because the people who are sticking around probably don't think kindly of the people who are leaving, and the people who are leaving feel like they're escaping, they're evacuating, they're not fleeing, you know. So put that in your language. All right. Let's see here. As the characters walk by, they hear one of the town's folk mutter, "Cowards," referring to the fleeing locals. Cool. All right. Then we can say upriver, the opposite direction. Let's say upriver, alone, riverboat, poles, it's a comma, poles toward town. As the characters watch from the swaying bridges of Sky Song Gulch, they see 4 corpses covered by tarps, covered by bloody tarps, laid respectfully in the ship's, the boat's bow. We'll say boat's bow. It's too small to be a ship. Boat's bow. Okay. All right, so we've kind of got these little vignettes here that we can litter in whenever they become appropriate, right? We don't need to just kind of dump this on the characters right away. We can sprinkle these pieces out as we play. So the next thing is we want kind of that triggered scene. And we're going to put that under adventure hook. We've got... Yeah, we kind of have that below. All right. We've come up with all of that. We can clean that dead space up, and we can write our scene here, our little box text with its narrative, or I should say with its dialogue included. So let's say, as you approach the raft scrapes to a halt. Let's say we said raft. Stanchions? I'm pretty sure that was spelled right. Okay. Yeah, different one. Yeah, brown pillars of the pier. A woman. Let's describe her somewhere else. Let's see. What descriptions do we have about Miss Nisa Stonehearth? Let's see. We know she got the pet owl. Did we come up with any other details about her? Let's see. Really should consolidate all this into the NPC notes, shouldn't I? All right. Town mayor, square jawed, no nonsense justice. Okay, cool. Gives me the info I want. Okay. A square jawed official with a blinking owl on her shoulder. Steps into the craft, into the small craft. Steps into the small craft. Without a word of introduction, she turns to the pilot and asks, "What happened?" Found what was left of them. How far away was the berg? 96 miles. Okay, so we just pick an arbitrary number that's not too far. Found them 20 miles outside of town. Found them 20 miles outside of town. Replies the riverboat pilot. Okay. The official squats next to corpses. Her owl taking flight. Her owl fluttering to the pier. As she reaches for, actually that can be combined back up here. As she reaches to pull back the tarp. The pilot says, "Wouldn't do that if I were you." It's a grisly sight. Ignoring him. The woman peers beneath the bloodied cloth. And that's really all we need, right? Is something where we have this little scene, this little moment that happens. We don't want this to drone on too long because we want our characters to get in the action. We want them to ask questions and to investigate and to, can I see what's underneath the pier? Can I ask what's going on, or what's underneath the tarp? Can I ask what's going on? You know, what is the what does the riverboat pilot look like? All of those things we want to prompt them in this to ask questions because they're going to be more interested with, if they ask questions and they've got to pull out some of that information, right? That's an old trick. You want them to want more, right? And with everything, every time they get more, they're going to want a little bit more. So feed this in chunks. But this gives us an introduction. This gives us a little bit of a framework so our characters show up to Sky Song Gulch. They have these experiences where they're seeing the town kind of being evacuated, people fleeing. You're seeing others that are refusing to go, hearing what they think about those, you know, the folks who are fleeing. We see, we have this moment where where we see something unusual coming to town. Somebody bringing bodies, clearly bloodied bodies, into town to pull attention. And then we have this little vignette, this little 2-paragraph vignette that sets the stage and puts us in a position where the characters might receive Nisa's offer. And so, with just a few sentences, we've really set a strong beginning through action that our players can really engage with and sink their teeth into and make the decision to engage with the story. Now, of course, there's always the chance that they're just going to kind of blow it off. And, well, there's two ways to approach that. One, yes, there's an argument that the players should be allowed to do whatever they want within a session because the world would adapt to that. In real life, they can make any choice they want, they could walk away. But there's also a little bit of a social contract with this, right? Where there's only so much that you can prepare. There's only so much that you can write, can come up with on the spot. And so, it's okay to let them deviate off track and go in different places if you've got ideas for those. But it's also okay that if you've got nothing else to just go, hey, yeah, we can do that next time. But this is what I got prepared for tonight. So if we're not going to engage with this, I'm going to have to, close the session and come up with what we do next. It's not ideal, but you can do that. It's, but we can help avoid ending up in a situation like that by, instead of just having Nisa stroll up to the characters as soon as they walk into town and ask for help, we can set the stage. We can make an interesting situation that hints at trouble and danger and let the characters get kind of pulled into that. Because let's be honest, the players want to be involved in a good story. That's why they're here. So if we set up the beginnings of a good story, they're going to help make that process so much easier by letting it pull them in. All right. So that's our hook. That's our introduction. That's all we really need for that. Now, we've got some more time here, so maybe we work on adding some rumors in here, things that the characters might be able to glean as they begin their investigation and as they sort of hunt about for more information. We've littered all kinds of little goodies throughout this adventure that the characters might benefit from knowing about. And so we can start putting some of that information down here to make it easy on ourselves, so that when inevitably the players go, well, let's ask around, let's see what else we can find out. You don't come back with, well, nobody knows nothing. I mean, that's an answer sometimes. If you're asking about rumors of the lost city of Amu and Port Nyanzaru and the Tomb of Annihilation, then yeah, a lot of people may not know anything about it, but in this sort of situation, clearly people in the town have some information on this, or else they wouldn't be so darn scared. So, let's So I used to just do this as as a bullet point list, but I've started in Notion doing it as these little tick box, and that way when I give a rumor, I can check it off. That way I don't duplicate information. Um, but we're just going to kind of do this fast and loose. Um, so rumors need to have kind of two pieces to them. They need to have a little bit of new information, and then they have to have an actionable item, right? Like, um, for example, if we were doing if we were, let's talk about the Oasis, right? Um, there's there is, as you may or may not recall, if you've been following along for a little while, there is an oasis that is relatively important to find when the characters are setting out between Skysong Gulch and the Berg, right? And so, if we're doing a rumor for the oasis, we need one, the information that it exists in the first place, and two, some kind of indication of the direction, right? It doesn't need to be a roadmap or whatever, but telling the characters, oh yeah, 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 about halfway to the oasis, about halfway to the Berg, there's an oasis. Is that kind of information is enough for a rumor because it cues the characters to look for it and to know what direction in which to go to look for it, or what they need to do next to look for it. Cool. So let's see. Let's start with that. Oasis. There's an oasis in the wasteland about halfway between Skysong Gulch and the Berg. It's the only source of fresh water on the journey. Cool. It's a useful bit of information for them. It tells them they're going to need to pack plenty of water, rewards them for doing this sort of investigate, doing this sort of taking the time to find out what else they can learn. All right. Let's see here. Bloodgood Sisters. The Bloodgood Sisters. Coven, or a hag coven. Saved the town from a drought several years ago, and in exchange for the actually we don't want to, because we don't want to clue them in necessarily that the town's going to use it to pay it off. We're going to use the cold iron to pay them off. So the Bloodgood Sisters, a couple of hags, saved the town from a drought several years ago, and now they are coming to collect on the debt. We don't have to have rumors about what they actually want. Many people might not even know, right? They may just know that they're coming. Okay, let's see here. Broken magic. The Berg was built on a font of, or a magical font. Suffused, which is a rumor has it that since its event being that we're preparing for that, for the coming of the Bloodgood Sisters, right? It's new information, and then there's something that can be inferred to be done about it. We might even add to this now that I think about it. Mayor is looking for someone to help. He just clarifies that action in there, right? That action ability. Now, they've probably already heard that, but maybe they haven't. Maybe they don't yet know. It gives us another access point to get to Nisa and her offer. And then finally, let's say magical disease. Berg was ravaged long ago by a magical disease. The old trappers still say that those who venture inside catch the cackles, as they would call perhaps cackle fever. Cool. Any other information that we might glean? Because not all of this has to be true either, right? Some of it can be a little misleading. We want there always to be a kernel of truth in there. We don't want any outright lies. But like, for example, just because you go inside doesn't mean you're going to catch the cackles or the cackle fever. We're not really worried about other adventures branching off from this. This is just kind of little bits of information that the characters might be able to learn about this adventure. So, I think that's probably all that we need. So, the last other thing that we had kind of talked about was treasure. So, for copyright reasons, I am not going to pull up the DMG on here, on screen, I should say. But yeah, let me get that up, and we will talk about kind of setting up a treasure hoard. So there's a couple of ways that you can kind of do this when you are when you're trying to populate a dungeon with treasure. You know, your players, you can sprinkle things around, right? Like, so I guess, yeah, let's talk. So you can sprinkle things around the adventure site, which is kind of the typical way of doing it, right? If you've read a module, you know that there's a sword in this room, and there's a gem in that room, and there's gold over here, and that's kind of the standard way of doing it. If you do that though, your players are going to miss chunks of this. They're not going to find everything, which is okay, but it means that we need to intentionally overpopulate our adventure site. With about if you go with Xanathar's guide's recommendation, about 25% more treasure or more magic items, which I'm kind of lumping into treasure here, than you would otherwise put in there to account for what's going to get missed. If you have a party that is really, anal about checking every room and searching every door and that kind of thing, they may find all of it. You may not need to do that. But another option that you can take if you don't want to just kind of sprinkle things around and hope they get found is you can just make a treasure list and dole it out where appropriate. Maybe, for example, like we have gone through, and in certain places we've put down, treasure, one cold iron storage key plus some other cool item. Like, we can just do a treasure list, and then when the characters get there, we pull something from that treasure list. The downside to this is that we have to be really diligent about kind of parceling it up so that we don't put too much in any one location, and we don't kind of, shoot our shot in the beginning and then there's like nothing for the characters to find in the second half of searching the Berg. I like to do a treasure list. I like to just have a list of stuff that I'm going to kind of pass out periodically like candy when they get to cool places. I just think it's easier that way. But again, it takes a little more self control. So it's entirely up to you on how you do this. But for now, let's just kind of make our treasure list. I think we're gonna just put that as a separate page here that we can just kind of reference as we need to. Berg, not Bert, Berg. Oh, sorry, I made a separate page. Within the Berg. Yeah, and so we're just saying Berg treasure list. And we're just going to populate that with some treasure. We're going to put some stuff in there. Some goodies. Think of it like D&D Halloween. Okay, so I will frequently go to the DMG and use the random treasure tables to just kind of spark what sounds interesting to me, especially when it comes to things like coin, right? Because there's so much. I mean, there's such wild variation there in terms of what, you know, how useful coin is in anybody's given campaign. For example, I'm running I'm running three different campaigns, but I'm running two different methodologies. In one campaign, we're doing a very, madcap hijinks heavy kind of rule of cool in a lot of places adventure where we hand wave things like rations and water and arrows and yada yada yada, right? Because that's just the style of play that works best with those players. They're there to have fun and goof off and cast spells and get into hijinks. It's in many ways very Scooby Doo, but it's a lot of fun, right? And that's one way to do that. Another campaign I'm running, we are running ultra gritty, right? Well, maybe not ultra gritty, but we're running much, much grittier. We're accounting for all of the resources. We're requiring healing kits to gain the benefit of natural healing. We're doing things like lingering injuries. And so when they don't have access to magical healing or specific levels of magical healing, they gotta go buy it. That campaign has the ability to custom order magic items. And so they can put money down and they've got to negotiate and purchase that kind of stuff. And so gold has a lot of value in that campaign. Whereas in the first one, you know what? I'm not sure they've really spent much gold. They love their magic items, but they got thousands of gold pieces and they rarely touch it. So it doesn't have a lot of value in that sort of fast and loose campaign, but in the grittier one, it has a lot of value. So the amount of gold you put in is really going to be up to you. But magic items are always handy. Now, I am not a huge fan of Magic Item Table A in the DMG. I think it feels pretty light, pretty weak. And so I'll usually bump things up a little bit there. But it's all a good place to start with. Now, you don't need to limit yourself to the DMG. I do when I do things publicly like this because I don't know what materials you have. And so I want to work with something that you are most likely to have because pretty much everybody who's DMing has the DMG. But not everybody necessarily has, Sanathars and Tashas and, and Bigsby's and what have you, right? So you don't need to limit yourself. Use the resources you have available. This is more for demonstration purposes. All right. So I have pulled up the in chapter 7, the random treasure table, treasure hoard. Now I've got challenges up here. I want to say our Blood Good Sisters are challenge rating 4 is what they've got. The high end, this is a high magic kind of deal. I'm going to bump that up to the challenge rating 5 to 10 horde on here. Again, it's more an art than a science putting this stuff in. So let's start off with, let's do the tick boxes for this as well so we know when we dole it out because we can do this. We're going to kind of start by putting this all in and then we'll parcel it up. So actually, I'm going to contradict myself. Let's do both. Tick boxes and bullet points. So let's say heading 2, master list, TBD, and then heading 2, and we'll say parcels. Parceling it out is a good practice to keep you from giving too much away too soon, right? Okay, so let's start with a coin. So we've got, what does it say? 2d6 times 100 copper pieces. All right. That's 600 copper pieces. And why include copper pieces, you might ask yourself? Well, because it takes up a lot of space and a lot of weight. If you're playing a gritty campaign, it means that the characters likely can't carry all of it, which means they need to be judicious about what they do with it. And that might include, hiding it somewhere so they can come back later. Or it makes spells like Tenzer's Floating Disc a more meaningful choice for a wizard. So again, it comes down to the kind of campaign you're running, right? If you care about weight and encumbrance, that kind of deal, yeah, use things like copper pieces and silver pieces. If you don't, and you're really just trying to give a little bit of coin, maybe stick with gold. All right, so silver is going to be 2d6 times 1,000. All right, and I just got a 10, so that's going to be 10,000 silver pieces. Again, heck of a lot of weight. All right, gold pieces is going to be 66. Oh, table rules. Pardon me a moment while I dive beneath my desk to get my dice. All right, and I'm back. So, table rules, let's roll that again. Okay, so that's 6 plus another 6, so that's 12 plus another 6, shockingly. Statistics must be with us. All right, and that is going to be, so that's what, 18? So 18 times 9, so 18 times 100, so we've got 1,800 gold pieces we can parcel out. Cool. Right, now let's get into, it's got platinum on this one too. Yeah, definitely get some platinum. All right, so 8 and 10. So we want, 100 platinum pieces somewhere in here. Fun little thing to pass out. And now let's get some magic items going. So let's roll our percentage dice. Percentile dice, I should say. And what do we got? Ooh, 100. Let's go to the bottom. All right, so 2d4 art objects. Let's see. 1. Okay, 4. We'll go with, 250 GP each. Cool. And it says we're going to roll once on magic item table H. So let's see. I don't really like doing one big. I don't like only having one magic item in an environment because unless it's a tiny dungeon, nobody feels good when only one person gets a magic item. If it's a small, it's a small dungeon, a little bite-sized encounter. Okay, have one there, and then have one another bite-sized encounter, and what have you. But you want everybody to kind of end up with an even number of magic items, because otherwise the players get a little resentful of each other sometimes, and we want to avoid that. Now, that being said, maybe we have one biggie from magic item table H, and maybe we roll, I don't know, 1d4 times. We've got a group of, how many? 4? All right, maybe we do 4 from, magic item table F or something like that. Let's see. Because, yeah, that's got stuff like +1 weapons, flying brooms, cool stuff. And then H is like biggie stuff. So let's do one roll on that. And because we could have something really epic hidden in here. And that is going to be 34. So, ooh, that is a Rod of the Packkeeper +3, but that requires attunement by a Warlock. We may not have one in the party. Let's see. Okay. These might be a little OP for what we're looking for. Let's see what's on G. That's a little closer. 34. Cloak of Displacement. That's cool. That's what we'll do. Cloak of Displacement for our big boy item, or big girl item, or big person item, I guess. We don't want to be gender reductive on this. So Cloak of Displacement. Cool. That's our biggie. And now let's get 4 items, one for each character on the smaller table. On table F. So that's going to be, 69? And it's going to be Bag of That's fun because it's useful by just about everybody. 77 for our next one. Eyes of the Eagle. Okay. Yeah, that's another good one. The Eagle. Yeah, Eagle. There we go. All right. 34 again. Rolling hot with 34s. Cloak of Elven Kind. Yep, that makes sense, especially considering where we are. Cloak of Elven Kind. Oh, Elven Kind is one word. Okay, and last check here is a 73. That is a Circlet of Blasting. Also another great choice. Fantabulous. And these are all kind of uncommon level items, which means it's, they give enough power for this kind of level character because we got 3rd level characters here, but they're not so like game breakingly beefy. Cool. So I think we're going to hit a place where it's time to kind of wrap up here. But what we would do with this is we would just kind of parcel these out into an even number of parcels based off of the number of places we need treasure for the Burg. And we've already got a few things that have been added in here. And so that kind of supplements what's going into our hoard, makes it a little bit larger. So there's a few more cool things in here. But, we'd kind of do a scan here and figure out where we want to hide stuff. Like we need one for the privy. We need, did I pass any before? Yeah, we need one for the garrison. Probably don't need anything in the gatehouse. Library needs to have some, and those should be scrolls, so we'll add some of those. Or we need to add a couple scrolls in there. Mine tunnel needs some treasure in there as well, as people find stuff in the various odds and ends. Probably a few of those. Let's see here, we've got the forge has got some treasure in it already. We may want to add something to that. And then so I think we're probably looking at like 4 or 5 parcels of treasure when we go through this, which is good because it means that if we do 5 kind of general parcels, then we can divide it all up along the lines of our magic items here. And so we can say something like, we're going to have the Cloak of Displacement. We're going to have Bag of Tricks, gray, and that's going to have 1 art object, 250, that. 250 GP. And let me copy that because we're going to use that again in a minute. And we're going to say eyes of the eagle. And another art object there. And we'll say cloak of elven kind. Put that there. And then circlet of blasting. Put that there. Now, we'll probably divide the treasure up into more than 5. We might even do 10 to just kind of sprinkle it out around a bit. And 10 is a good, easy number to divide this up between. So we can say 10 of the following. We could say 60 copper, 1,000 silver, 180 GP, and 10 platinum pieces. So if you want a little variation in that, one thing that you can do is just kind of divide those up by their various denominations when you hand them out, so they seem a little less random, or turn them into gems, things like that. But it comes out to about the same pricing, or the same value. And now we've got a bunch of little units that we can just kind of dole out easily throughout the session as characters, achieve things, and as they find cool places and they find the stuff that we've kind of tucked away. Fantastic. Well, that's it. That's the whole thing. The next step in the process would be to go through and edit this. But if you're playing it for yourself, you don't really need to spend a lot of time in that editing process. It's just kind of a quick read through this to make sure you haven't contradicted yourself anywhere too much, and fix those things that you have. If you're writing this for other people, the editing process is a little more involved. And I don't think you guys want to sit here and watch me do a detailed edit of this. I mean, let me know in the comments if you do, and I will. Otherwise, I'll just kind of talk about how I do my editing on a future video, and just kind of give you my process without really making you sit here and sit through it in real time, because it does take a little while. But regardless, thank you so much for joining me. Since we're kind of moving into the end of this, we're gonna have to start a new adventure here soon. So I would love to get some ideas from you all in the chat. If there's things you want to see, if there's an adventure in particular you want me to write, or a particular topic you want me to handle, like mysteries or raids or heists or wilderness exploration, or political adventures or what have you, let me know. I would love to get some ideas from you guys and write the kind of things that you're interested in learning about. So thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so that you never miss a video. And please come find me on startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr and join one of my sessions. I would love to see you there. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week. Bye.